Half-Life is a sci-fi FPS game from Valve, often considered to be one of the best games of all time by many. Hello and welcome to the Cut Content Of, a show where we try to find content that you weren't able to see in some amazing games. Today we're looking at the first game in the Half-Life series, which was released for Windows in November of 1998. As we usually do in this show, we need to go back to the first known prototype. The first prototype for this game was created in September 1997, just over a year before the final release. In January 2013, a physical disc containing this prototype, intended for the press review, sold on eBay for $709 US. The contents of this disc were leaked on Reddit not long after. There is a lot to learn from this demo. First, let's look at the NPCs that were changed in the final release, starting with Gordon Freeman himself. The model for Gordon Freeman is almost completely different. His beard is very big and he has a flat top haircut. The HUD suit has larger gloves and the word research on his back, a darker yellow, and a much bulkier design overall. This version of Gordon Freeman was nicknamed Ivan the Space Biker by Valve due to its wild looks. In the model folder for the prototype, there are 3 more models for Gordon. There are models for a red Gordon, a green Gordon, and a blue Gordon. It's possible that these models are going to be used for multiplayer team mode. Some popular Quake mods would have red, green, blue, and yellow teams for multiplayer, but Half-Life only has the first 3. However, the regular Gordon model probably would have been used in a darker yellow color. This design for Gordon did appear in one of the first Half-Life screenshots ever released by Valve. Regular scientists look quite different, with almost completely different clothing, but are also a lot more useless. The prototype scientists have no model for their needle, probably meaning that the scientists weren't originally able to heal the player. Walter's model is slightly different in the final version. The main design for the character stayed the same, but his head is a slightly different shape, differently shaped eyebrows, an open mouth, some blood on the face, and slightly less thick glasses. Also, there's an even older version of the model called Sin_Scientist and Science Seat, with an angry face wearing glasses, no frame, and a mouth that is just a texture instead of the fully modeled one in the final game. This design is shown in the early pre-release screenshot for the game. Einstein has a slightly different skin color, larger eyes, and a thicker mustache and eyebrows. Finally, the security guard is extremely different, with a much more frightening cartoon-like face. The helmet is different with MP written on the front, standing for military police. This pre-release screenshot shows the version of the security guard. The only weapons that work in this build are the crowbar, the Glock pistol, and the MP5SD submachine gun. The weapons are much weaker in this prototype too, with the exception of the grenade from the MP5SD M203, which stay the same in the final version. There isn't a reload animation for any of the weapons in this version, but there is no need to reload them anyway, they have infinite ammo. The crowbar is very noticeably lower poly and has a different texture. While holding the crowbar, no arm can be seen holding it. This weapon is very useless due to the slower swing rate and the low damage it does, unless you're trying to break objects. In the HUD, the crowbar appears as a knife, suggesting that it used to be a knife at some point during development. The Glock pistol has a much less detailed and slightly blockier design, with different textures. This version is less accurate while firing and fires slightly faster. The arm holding it is a person wearing a lab coat and holding it with one hand. The submachine gun has a slightly less detailed texture and is slightly longer in the final game. This version is more accurate than in the final game, and the grenades can be used to rocket jump without losing all of your health. Someone with bare arms holds the gun in this prototype instead of the HEV suit that we're used to in the final game. The prototype version makes this noise when firing, but the final game has actual gunfire sound. Bullets from the pistol and SMG would create tracer effects almost every time. The chance of a tracer effect is much rarer in the final game. When a tracer is seen in the final game, it is more green than orange of the prototype. There is an icon in the HUD for a fist, which only removes the player's weapon. In the folder for the HUD graphic, there is also an icon for a fire axe, which isn't used in the prototype. There is no model for a fire axe in this version. Also in the HUD graphics folders, there are sprites for the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are probably placeholders for other weapons while they're still being implemented. Most menus in this build are ripped straight from Quake, but with their graphics replaced, and the HUD looks very different. There's even an earlier HUD graphic which seems to be based on the HUD from Quake, an unused graphic for the credits which references the old name for Half-Life and the name of the cancelled game from Valve. Loads of Quake graphics are in the prototype too. On September 1st, 1998, 2.5 months before the final release of the game, a demo called Half-Life Day 1, which was bundled with a graphics card, was built. Starting off, the chapters Blast Pit, Power Up, Apprehension, Reducing Processing, Forgetting About the Freedom, and Lambda Core all had different titles. In this version, like in the September 1997 version in Quake, the player could not look directly up. The developer console is completely disabled and inaccessible in this version. When reloading, the ammo count that will be added gets subtracted and only updates when the animation finishes. This makes it seem like the player loses ammo for a short amount of time. Some weapons will randomly become semi-transparent and their decals will flicker. This is a huge bug with the version of the OpenGL renderer. It does not affect the ability to play the game. The main menu is missing the exit and minimize buttons and the ability to create a custom game or use multiplayer. A file called splash8bit.bmp was probably an early background for the menu, as it has one of the scientists from the 1997 version. An unused skybox exists and appears to be the early version of the Morning Desert skybox, but this is 3D rendered and completely different to the finally used one. The loading graphic is much more barren with only a black background and the Lambda logo. This demo has sprites for a battery, a charge meter similar to the one found in the pre-release screenshots. This is probably to show how much armor the player had left. Day 1 has 2 video files removed from the final game called Jinnah.avi and Gordon.avi. They show either Jinnah Cross or Gordon Freeman's models rotating 360 degrees. This prototype allows the player to hold up to 25 grenades instead of the final game's limit of 10. Grenades can be thrown much farther than the final game, so it makes it a little bit easier to use. The battery is completely different and plays no sound in this version. The long jump module is very different in the final game too. A demo called Half-Life Uplink was released on February 12, 1999, after the game was released. This has some differences and is loosely based on the idea from the cut chapter Communication Center. The demo has a different screen which ends up lacking multiplayer. ViewReadme is changed to viewreadme.txt and previews was replaced with full version. The machine gun in this version will gib enemies unlike the final game. The final game has loads of cut content. For instance, the Ivan the Space Biker model for Gordon Freeman from the 1997 build was included, but it couldn't be opened without repair. In addition to this model, there's a construction worker, which is on foot. The game only uses workers in a forklift with a completely different design. A stealth jet, a skeleton lying down, a breather, and a test sphere. There are cut enemies in the files including the Chum Toad, which was a non-hostile alien, Mr. Finley, which was a horse-sized alien creature, the Archer, an underwater creature that would shoot players and bite them, the Charger, the Flocking Floater, which would shoot gas at the player, the Kingpin, which was cut because of the lack of convincing AI, the Panther Eye, the Snapbug, the Stuckabat, the Yellow Boyd, and a Human Sergeant. Some unused weapons exist, which are a projectile version of the Chum Toad and a silenced pistol which had its model reused in the Team Fortress Classic. Cut items include Adrenal to revive the player, an antidote to stop the damage from toxins, an antitoxin, a flare, the security card possibly a scrapped gameplay event, an oxygen tank which replenishes the player's air meter, an isotope box, and a box of bullets. The name for the box is W_chain ammo and suggests that it would have been used for chain gun ammo, but there isn't a chain gun in the game. No clipping through the door in the map C0A0D, you can see an early entrance design. Scientists have some removed dialogue.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. You are Gordon Freeman, aren't you? The one they're expecting in the Lambda complex? If you can figure a way past that gargantua on the landing field and through the bunker door out there, you'll find yourself at the Lambda Lab's doorstep.
And the announcement system has some removed dialogue too.
Hello, the Automatic Diagnostic and Announcement System welcomes you to the Black Mesa Research Facility. Remember, have a secure day.
There's a creepy model called MrValve.md1. This was intended for the original intro video but was cut. This is also found in the Day 1 demo.
There was a port of the game for the Dreamcast, but was scrapped before its 2001 release. The game never reached store shelves. It had a different loading screen, title screen, and a slightly modified logo saying Sega Dreamcast. Thank you for watching, but also thank you to Pawmso for voicing this episode.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Cut Content Of. You can support the show by pledging some money at patreon.com/TCCO, subscribing, sharing, turning on notifications, or just watching some of our videos. If you'd like, you can leave a suggestion for a future episode in the comment section below. But that's it for this episode. The Cut Content Of returns next week with an episode every week.
Click or touch this profile icon to go to Pawmso's channel. Bye!